Hat off. Hand up. My bad. There are I think like 2 or 3 Locked On Big 12 titles in the last 2 years that say fire Aaron Roderick or some version of that lingo. And man, after not just the Iowa State game where you lose LJ Martin, you're starting running back, and have to turn Bear Bachmeier into Superman, and somehow as an OC meticulously craft an offense mid-game without your star running back that is both conducive to a freshman quarterback but gives Bear Bachmeier the ability to go out there and be a star and win the game. Like, not only that, but he's doing it week in and week out, battling injuries and 18, 19-year-old quarterback, the Retzlaff situation, the wake of that, building an offense. Aaron Roderick should go from Locked On Big 12's most fired to Broyles award-winning candidate. I think what he has done as an OC this year cannot be overlooked. And there may be a couple BYU fans who are like, ooh, reluctantly, yes. But it's hard to deny at this point.
Well, so Drake, I have had my real estate built on Roderick Island, to call it that, for a long time. And you and I have talked about this a lot. And trust me, I know I was sent the screenshots of the titles you put out there. Trust me, I was on the kind of the opposite side of the Gulf. I've always been an Aaron Roderick fan. I've always believed that he is very capable at what he's doing. And I'm not trying to call you out here, but what he's proving is he's a very good offensive mind. And I know that he's had a bad rap from some of the failures of the past, but you can't argue with what he's done with his quarterbacks. He's put 3 of them in the NFL. He's got a guy like Bear Bachmeier, who's a true freshman, looks like he might be the next great thing in Provo, Utah, a school that is very, very well versed in top tier quarterback play. So yeah, he deserves his flowers, his laurels. He deserves some apologies as well along with that.
It's me. I'm apologizing to A-Rod, and based on what he's put together this year, I think like Bear Bachmeier has 9 rushing touchdowns. Yeah. That takes a combination of like cojones, serious cojones, and trust in a freshman QB to run him the way that Roderick has in both design runs and to trust when the pocket breaks down. Bear, you have the green light. Go carry Utah football players into the end zone and score a touchdown if able. It's what maybe give me a little bit of grace here. What was I missing a year ago, whether it was the Kansas game or the Arizona State game? What was the country and the BYU fans who wanted him gone? What were they missing?
It was failures in the red zone. But that I say this all the time, Drake. Coaches call plays, players make said plays. And Jake Retzlaff, I think he's a fine quarterback. I use the term all the time. He was a good quarterback playing at a university that's used to great or elite quarterbacks. You can look through the history of BYU football. Jim McMahon, Steve Young, Ty Detmer, John Beck, Jaron Hall, Zach Wilson. They have had top-tier quarterback play for literally decades. Jake Retzlaff was a good quarterback, but you don't have to look much further than some of the failures he had in the red zone. The 100-yard pick six against Oklahoma in 2023, when look at BYU was finally going to seize control of that game. There were multiple instances a season ago when, a lot of people wanted to put the blame at Aaron Roderick's feet for a bad fade pass thrown by Jake Retzlaff in the end zone. Players make plays, Drake. Coaches call said plays, but the other thing is Kalani Sitake, I can tell you that he has said it on the record this season, the most reviled / hated person in BYU is going to be the offensive coordinator, and that's not a recent development. Trust me. Norm Chow is one of the great offensive coordinators in college football history, Drake, and I'm telling you, you can ask anybody who's of a certain age in Cougar Nation that Norm Chow's job seemed to have a referendum on it every single week, even though BYU had a Heisman Trophy winner. They won a national title. What did they want? Hey, we need to get a new offensive coordinator in here. It's par for the course.
Yeah. Again, I'm sorry. This is my big apology to A-Rod. 25th in the country in offensive success. Net EPA per play offensively is 44th in America, and he's doing it with a freshman quarterback and doing it with last week. Effectively, okay, here's another piece of this. There's one running back in the room. And against Iowa State, there were 0 running backs in the room. And not to dilute what Rex can do behind him, but he's not ready yet. Like his day could come. He's not ready yet. And the fact that A-Rod is doing this in different ways, week in and week out, maybe the most impressive piece.
Yeah, well, the other thing about this, you go back to that Iowa State game, Drake. I asked Kalani the question in the aftermath of that game. Said, "Hey, did you guys go into halftime essentially and like tear up your playbook and go with a new look offense?" He said, "Well, we have our kind of our base system, and then we just kind of just rotated from there." Well, Aaron Roderick said, "No, we went into the locker room. We kind of identified what could work. Obviously, with a hampered running game is probably the best way to term it, and put together some plays that we felt like, okay, these are our bread and butter." They made a wholesale change in that game. You mentioned the fact they made Bear Bachmeier superhuman. Yeah, he was. 350 of their 400 yards. I'm using round numbers there, but that was the production he put out there, both throwing and running. He was the entire offense, and you don't do that without an offensive coordinator that can put things together on the fly and help you have success. So yeah, it was a really cool to see Aaron Roderick earn, I think, some of the more respect that people have been very unwilling to give him. But I'm extending that grace to you, Drake. I don't think you're alone. Trust me, there are a lot of Cougar fans out there who have some tweets. If I wanted to go dig them up, I'm sure I could find plenty of them that not even earlier this season wanted him out of a job.
Yeah. Have we seen the complete, and I know a lot of BYU fans now on the social media apps have come around to this, and they are very big fans of A-Rod. Have we seen the apex of the BYU offense, or is there something, because look, it is formulaic, it's not the right word, but every week I watch it and I think, ooh, well-timed jet sweep. Ooh, nice speed option. Ooh, Bear Bachmeier running the football. Is there a wrinkle we haven't seen? Anything that makes you think the ceiling is still out there? Or is this a machine that is clicking as it should?
I am thinking that we still have one iteration of this to come. And I think we saw a glimpse of it against Iowa State. And that is a game with a full-fledged passing attack. What BYU has done with Bear Bachmeier, Drake, is run the ball downhill on people and then play action off of it. They kind of stole what Arizona State did with Sam Levitt a season ago. They allowed a guy like Cam Scadaboo to run all over teams, and when they needed to pass the ball, okay, fake the handoff, RPO action, or just straight play action, and throw the ball, Sam. It was a very, very tried and true method. BYU's done the same thing with Bear Bachmeier, but eventually, whether it's this season, next season, or sometime in the relatively near future, we're going to see a game where, much like Iowa State, you may not have a running back, and you got to tell Bear Bachmeier, all right, the full playbook, the full passing game is open to you. Now we're going to really do dropbacks, seven step drops, excuse me, English. And we're going to really unleash the passing game. That's the final iteration of what we need to see this offense to really see, I think, in its full glory.
Do you get that this weekend against Texas Tech?
To a degree. We're expecting to see LJ Martin play in this game, and if he's anywhere near playable shape, you'll still see the same game plan where they're going to run the ball as much as they possibly can and play action off of it. But I do think you'll see some more straight passing game elements in this offensive play calling.
Look, teams don't love throwing the ball down the middle of the field unless it's a quick slant.
Yeah.
BYU is the exception to that. The way that Bear Bachmeier has found a third read 15 yards downfield in the middle of the field and not gotten his receivers killed and converted on third downs is the stuff of people. Again, they said it preseason, a couple rogue, I feel like they were rogue at the time, folks that were saying, oh, this is murmurs of Tim Tebow, freshman Tim Tebow. Dog, this is probably what they felt like when they watched freshman Tim Tebow. They were blown away by his performance for a guy who is this young. Bear Bachmeier looks like that. A-Rod made the right call alongside Kalani Sitake to make him the starting quarterback. I think a lot of the country, it's so odd, this optic of had McKay Hillstead been named the starter, maybe you get a little bit more hub from the media preseason, like, oh, it's a guy who's done this before. But because Bachmeier was a freshman, a lot of people threw the BYU season out the window and said there's no way they can win. Now the Cougars are a top 10 team. This weekend we'll see that offense, Bear Bachmeier against David Bailey and Jacob Rodriguez and Texas Tech. I'm sure that Bachmeier knows they put their pants on the same way as anybody else, and it's going to be a heck of a clash. Hatch, we'll let you go, and I know you'll give us this on college football kickoff as well. Do you have a final score prediction yet? I know it's still early enough in the week.
I have been bouncing back and forth on this. I'll just say this. I do think BYU covers whatever the spread is. I'm not at the point where I'm going to pick BYU to win quite yet, because I really do think this is the toughest game to date for BYU, but I do think they cover whatever the spread ends up being. I'll just say that.
That's going to be a fun one. That is Jake Hatch of Locked On Cougars. This has been, it always will be. You can follow him on X at Jacob C. Hatch. This is Locked On. Thanks for making our shows your first listen every single day. A crossover with Cougars and Dose Grande.